Lokile he. Ke nako jwale hore re se ntwa enana. Batho ba Vaal ba deserve ntho e betere go phala tsietsi le shava sa bona e Kenya. Jwale ho le jwale ke re ho lona Andiamo Inguero. Ha ba shwe. Ke re ho lona 18 a itswele pele. 18.
Hello everyone, welcome back to ASR, African Stories Realized. This is our latest review of 016 FM Season 1. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Episode 8 picks up with Charity and the professor flirting at the station. Tieti walked in on them, where an argument between father and son ensued in front of a shocked Charity. Tieti accused his father of being a womanizing deadbeat that abandoned his family, forcing the professor to reveal the truth, that Mama June's promiscuity was what made him move overseas and drove him away from his family. A skeptical Tieti laughed off the scandalous accusations and went home, where Karabo arrived to console him before the two shared their first kiss together. Meanwhile on air, things took a hostile turn when Whiskey issued a war cry to his supporters, demanding that they take to the streets and attack Tieti's supporters. Tieti went back to the station for his first show since his mother's passing, where Queen asked him to read an ad on air, sending out signals to Grootman's henchmen. The episode ends with Whiskey's brother Lucky in the car with Grootman's henchmen, shocked to discover that they're using the station to communicate about their heists. Episode 9 picks up at the station, where Tieti left Karabo a note saying he regrets what happened between them and that he values her too much as a friend for anything else to happen between them. The beef had intensified, with supporters of Team Whiskey and Team Tieti attacking each other. Tieti tried to appeal to some of Team Whiskey's supporters to stop the violence. However, they ended up chasing him through the Vaal as he narrowly escaped. He made it back to the station, where him and Latoya went on air and made a passionate plea to the community to stop the violence. Meanwhile, Whiskey was concerned with his brother, who had been acting out lately. Whiskey linked up with Pius, who informed him that him and Queen will be responsible for the logistics of the Kwaal event, and that his guys will be in charge of security. Whiskey then went back to the station, where he noticed Karabo's potential, offering her a place on Team Whiskey, which she said she would think about. Whiskey and Tieti then had an argument which escalated into a fight that luckily Karabo broke up. After his fight with Tieti, Whiskey went to the club where his brother had been acting erratically. Whiskey confronted him for being reckless before dragging the drunk Lucky out of the club. Back at the station, an injured Tieti went to Queen's office to find something he could treat his injuries with. But the episode ends with him finding a lot of money stashed in a first aid bag. Episode 10 picks up after Tieti found large amounts of cash in Queen's office. He immediately started investigating, following Pius and uncovering his criminal activities. He shared everything he had uncovered with his father, who suggested they go to the police with the information, assuring Tieti that he knows the new police chief. Tieti and his father later met up for lunch, where the professor shared some evidence on Pius from his friends in the government intelligence department. The professor further told Tieti to be careful because many witnesses who were willing to testify against Pius had disappeared in the past. Meanwhile, Latoya and Whiskey's relationship continued. However, Whiskey grew increasingly concerned about his brother TK. Back at the station, Whiskey attempted to recruit Karabo to Team Whiskey. Tieti got a bit jealous and confronted Whiskey for getting too close to Karabo, and after almost coming to blows, Tieti refocused and attempted to join forces with Whiskey in his mission to save the station from Pius. However, Whiskey was not interested, instead gaslighting Tieti, pretending he knew nothing of Pius's criminal activities. The episode ends with the revelation that Keith has been kidnapped and is being held hostage by a mysterious female figure. Episode 11 picks up at the station, where Tieti begged Karabo not to join Team Whiskey, but she refused, insisting that she's Team Whiskey all the way. Whiskey went home, where he confronted his brother for his recent behavior and cautioned him against hanging with Pius's crew. However, TK was defiant, calling Tieti out for his hypocrisy since he also works for Pius. Whiskey rushed to Pius's club and angrily insisted that Pius leave his brother alone, but his approach was ill-advised as Pius threatened Whiskey for disrespecting him in public. Later, in a heart-to-heart with Latoya, Whiskey revealed that he didn't see eye to eye with Tsietsi because he felt that Tsietsi was a spoiled brat who's always relied on his parents, whereas Whiskey started out hustling in the streets and had to work hard to earn everything he has. Back at Whiskey's place, he tried to talk some sense into his brother once again, but it seemed TK was too far gone as he flashed a gun in front of his brother, threatening him before leaving to do Pius's dirty work. Meanwhile, Tsietsi's father had a date with Charity. However, after dropping her off at home, the professor was ambushed and kidnapped by a group of masked men on the highway. Back at the station, Whiskey decided to take up Tsietsi's offer of joining forces to bring down Pius. However, when the two DJs went to Tsietsi's house to talk privately, they found Pius waiting for them. Pius had discovered that the two DJs were working together and only let them live so they could make sure that the Kwaal event went ahead as planned. Tsietsi tried to refuse, but the episode ends with Pius revealing that he is holding Tsietsi's father hostage and will kill him if they don't carry out his orders.
Pius place. Ke ba patalla fela hore ba tshware microphone. Like my boy, Whiskey.
Episode 12 picks up on the day of the Kwaal. The 016 FM crew prepared for the event. However, they started questioning Keith's absence on such an important day. It soon revealed that Keith was being held in the 016 FM supply room, while Stietsi's father was being held in Pius's scrapyard. At the scrapyard, the professor realized that one of the kidnappers holding him captive was Whiskey's brother, TK, who was determined to help the professor escape. Back at the Kwaal, the show kicked off with live performances from dancers, DJs, and musicians. Keith's stalker arrived at the event looking for Keith, revealing to Whiskey and Tsietsi that she's been tracking Keith's phone, which led them to Queen, who had the phone in her bag. They took Queen captive, as she revealed where Keith and the professor were being held. The episode ends with Pius stopping TK and the professor at gunpoint as they tried to escape. In episode 13, the Kwaal continued, with the community enjoying the event. Tsietsi and Whiskey then made their way to 016 FM, where Keith was nowhere to be found. Instead, they discovered that the station had been robbed of all its equipment. They quickly suspected that Pius, who had got the station into debt with a multi-million rand loan, was responsible for the robbery. Whiskey and Tsietsi went out in search of the stolen equipment when they realized that Pius was using his ads over the radio to send out coordinates of their criminal activities. The two went back to the Kwaal where they found information about the heist on Queen's phone and managed to pass it on to the police chief, who was a friend of the professor. Pius arrived at the Kwaal shortly after he was brought on stage and celebrated by the community. Tsietsi and Karabo made up as he asked for another chance with her before she rocked the stage and helped set Whiskey and Tsietsi's plan in motion. First, they redirected Pius's trucks to police roadblocks. Then they head out with the police for a final confrontation with Pius at the scrapyard. Pius threatened to kill TK and the professor, but he didn't know that everyone at the Kwaal and the community was listening in, with Latoya broadcasting the confrontation over the speakers. Just as Pius was about to shoot TK, a brawl ensued, with the police arriving soon after to arrest Pius, who laughed in their faces. Everyone made it back to the Kwaal, where Tsietsi was announced as the winner and the new station manager. The episode ends with everybody partying together as Latoya revealed to Whiskey that she will be leaving 016 FM to start her own show on Channel O. A bittersweet ending to an indifferent season. The Kwaal definitely didn't disappoint, and from the beginning you could tell that they were building up to the Kwaal in the finale. I feel like we could have done without the stalker, and I think Queen was a bit underutilized. The show made it clear that she was helping Pius under duress, so it might have been wiser to use her as a damsel in distress, who instead goes to Tsietsi for help. She had great chemistry as part of the 016 FM team, so I'm disappointed they didn't give her that character development where she turns from an antagonist to a protagonist. The cast was very committed, but like I've mentioned before, I believe that Mpho Sebeng's untimely passing affected the approach that the show initially intended to take. Throughout the season, it felt like there were a lot of scenes that were cut for whatever reason, which made some of the episodes feel disjointed. There was definitely a disconnect there, which might confuse some viewers. We needed at least 40 minutes per week to fully digest the story. especially for a season with 13 episodes. Showmax could have definitely done more to promote the show, but I believe as time goes, more people will discover it and binge it for themselves. Outside of Mama June, there was a lack of casualties in the show, and I wonder if that was also by design, to give Mpho a clean send-off. They avoided ending the season on a cliffhanger or any negativity. The character Whiskey was Mpho Sebeng's final role, and the show did well to make sure he left a lasting impression. I could tell he really enjoyed playing the character. His energy and chemistry with other characters was unmatched. The cast and production was clean. Joseph Sidibo, who played Deity, really impressed me, and he's been killing it on Mpini as well. I look forward to seeing a lot more of his work. Unfortunately, before the 016 FM finale hit the screens, the show lost another cast member, with the announcement that Sello Motloung, who played the role of Deity's father, had sadly passed away. Sello was a talented veteran actor who had graced our screens since the 90s, committing over 30 years of his life to the industry, with many praising him for his versatility and professionalism. I'd like to send my deepest condolences to his friends and family. Rest in peace, Brasello. 016 FM is unlikely to return for a second season, but it was a pleasure reviewing this show with you all.
Thabo.
Dumela ntate Mofuki.
Ebe nka o thusa kae?
Ke tla ntsha mahadi a morodi a o thanki.
Hao. Ha ona dikgomo. Ebile o sa le monyane.
Ka tsela. Wa tlo fa stick hanyana ka kgwedi. Hore ke setse ke na le dilemo tse di 20 tse go flash kgomo tse di 6 tsa mahadi.
Rabotata!